ஓம் நமோ நாராயணாய.
ஸ்ரீராம ஜெயம். ஆழ்வார் ஆச்சாரியர்கள் திருவடிகளே சரணம். ஸ்ரீமதே ராமானுஜாய நமக. ஸ்ரீமதே நிகமாந்த மகாதேசிகாய நமக. கதவிருக்ஷா வழங்கும் திருவோணம் திருநாள் நிகழ்ச்சியுடைய இன்றைய பகுதிக்கு உங்கள் எல்லாரையும் நான் வெல்கம் பண்ணுறேன். இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியில் மறுபடியும் உங்களை சந்திக்கிறதுல ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமாக இருக்குது. நம்ம ஒவ்வொரு மாதமும் இந்த ஸ்ரவண நட்சத்திரத்தை அன்னைக்கு பகவத்கீதாலேருந்து ஒரு ஸ்லோகமும் அதுக்கான மேலோட்டமான விளக்கம், அதை தொடர்ந்து அதுக்கான டீப் எக்ஸ்பிளனேஷன், ஆச்சாரியர்களுடைய கோட்ஸ், இதுலேருந்து நம்ம வாழ்க்கைக்கு என்ன தெரிஞ்சுக்கணும் அப்படின்றதெல்லாம் தெரிஞ்சுட்டு வரும். அதை ரொம்ப பியூட்டிஃபுல்லாக நம்மளுக்காக ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணிட்டு வரா ஸ்ரீமதி டாக்டர் ஸ்ரீவித்யா சத்யமூர்த்தி அவர்கள். அதே மாதிரி இன்றைக்கும் நம்ம பகவத்கீதாலேருந்து ஒரு விசேஷமான ஸ்லோகம் கேட்க போகிறோம். இன்னையோட எபிசோட் கொஞ்சம் லாங்காக இருக்கும், ஆனால் கண்டிப்பாக எல்லாரும் கடைசி வரைக்கும் கேளுங்க. ஏன்னா நிறைய முக்கியமான விஷயங்கள், நம்மளுக்கு தெரியாத விஷயங்களை பற்றி தெரிஞ்சுக்க போகிறோம். இந்த எபிசோடில் பகவத்கீதாவோட சாப்டர் 15லேருந்து ஸ்லோகம் கேட்டுட்டு அதை தொடர்ந்து அதுக்கான விளக்கங்கள், மேற்கோள்கள், அதை தவிர ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயங்கள் டீட்டெயில்டாக எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ண ரெடியாக இருக்கா ஸ்ரீமதி டாக்டர் ஸ்ரீவித்யா சத்யமூர்த்தி. ஸோ நம்ம எல்லாரும் அவளோட சேர்ந்து ஸ்லோகத்தையும் கேட்டுட்டு அதுக்கான விளக்கங்கள் எல்லாத்தையும் கேட்டு அனுபவிக்கலாம்.
ஹரி ஓம் ஸ்ரீ குருப்யோ நமஹ. Welcome back to our Gita discussion. Hope that you have been listening and contemplating on the Gita verses we have discussed so far. As I have said before, I myself am really enjoying this journey that we have embarked upon, as it is a great opportunity for Swadhyaya. Today's verses and the related concepts are so complex that I believe that I am not qualified to discuss them. Nevertheless, I will make a humble attempt. Today we chose a few shlokas from the 15th chapter, known as Purushottama Yoga, another great adhyaya in the Gita. So here they go. Om Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Om Shri Krishna Paramatmane Namaha. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Atha Panchadashodhyayah Purushottama Yogah. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Urdhvamoolamadhashakam Ashvatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavit Adhaschodhvam Prasrutastasya Shakha Guna Pravriddha Vishaya Pravalaha Adhascha Moolanyanu Karmanubandhini Manushaloke Narupamasyeha tatophalabhyate Nanto na chadir na cha sampratishtha Ashvathamenam suvirudhamulam asankashastrena dridhena chitva tatah padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuyah tameva chatyam purusham prapatye yata pravritti prasruta purani. Om Tat Sat. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Purushottama Yogo Nama Panchadashodhyayah. In my humble opinion, this is the most complex set of shlokas I have so far encountered in my brief study of the Gita. I have read these verses numerous times and still feel I have not completely understood their essence and deep message. However, let us make an attempt to see what Bhagavan is trying to teach us. Once again, let us set the context here before delving deeper into the shlokas. Again, I mentioned that in chapter 9, which is one of the most beautiful chapters in the Gita, that now is probably surpassed by the chapter 15. Chapter 15 is a very beautiful chapter. It is the Purushottama Yoga. The ideas that were introduced in these earlier chapters consummate in this chapter. This chapter was termed as a science by the Lord Himself. In fact, He calls this a secret science. The principles of life and the highest spiritual wisdom are shared in this chapter by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. The entire essence of the Vedas, which is to teach humans the meaning of spirituality or reality, are given in this chapter. In the 13th chapter, we learned from the Lord how the material self is separated from the true self. And in the 14th chapter, He tells us the science of the different gunas and their interplay in our samskaras, and how to use them in the right manner to overcome the attachment to the body. To achieve these efforts successfully, self-realization and renunciation of the fruit of our efforts is essential. Bhakti is the way for achieving this, and using our gunas, developing sattva and reducing rajas and tamas to enable us to achieve this, we keep moving toward that ultimate reality. Here, Acharya Vinoba Bhave has described the three brothers in Ramayana: Ravana, Kumbhakarna and Vibhishana. Even though they are born out of the same parents, they are each the embodiment of the three different gunas: Kumbhakarna of tamas, Ravana of rajas and Vibhishana of sattva guna. Here, let us listen to these verses from Ramacharita by Sant Tulasidas, where he elaborates on these gunas of the three brothers. Kinha bibid tapatini hu bhai, param ugra nahi barani so jai. Gaya unikat tap dekhi bidata, maga hu bar prasanna mein tata. Kari pinati pad gahi dasa sisa, boleo bachan sunahu jagadisa. Hum kahu ke marahi न मारे, बानर मनुज जाति तुही बारे. एवमस्तु तुम बड़ तप कीन्हा, मैं ब्रह्मा मिलिते ही बर दीन्हा. पुनि प्रभु कुंभकर्ण पहि गयऊँ, ते ही बिलो की मन बेसमय बयहु. जो एहि खल नित करब आहारो, होई ही सब उजारि संसारो. सारद प्रेरितासु मति फेरी, मागेसी नीद मास शटकेरी. गए विभीषण पास पुनि, कहे पुत्र बर मागु. तेहि माग केउ भगवंत पद, कमल अमल अनुरागु. Vibhishana, the younger brother of Ravana, displayed sattva gunas, including the quality of a good heart, harmony, balance, and virtues. Ravana, on the other hand, was the embodiment of rajogunas, including the quality of action, egoism, rampant ambition, wealth, power, and control. Kumbhakarna, another brother, was the embodiment of tamoguna, including the quality of inertia, sloth, stagnation, and regression. Just like these three characters are always struggling with each other in the Ramayana, there is a constant struggle between these gunas within each of us. The gunas that are embodied by Ravana and Kumbhakarna need to be removed, and the sattva principle depicted by Vibhishana with a submission at the feet of the Lord by Sharanagati, when nurtured, helps our progress in the right direction. Just like in the Battle of Lanka, first Vibhishana was reconciled with Rama to deal with the daily battles that we need to get on the side with the Sattva Guna. Again, like in the Ramayana, Rama next destroyed Kumbhakarna. We too have to deal with our opposing forces by completely controlling tamas in our lives. Then the final battle is with our negative rajasic inclinations, to subdue them and bring them under control, and then to establish sattva on the throne of our minds. Once this is done, we are well on the way or returning to our original status as a union of the Jivatma with the Paramatma. This is what is shown in the 14th chapter and again reiterated in the beginning of the 15th chapter. Coming to our current shlokas, they have to do with the relationship of the tree of life with the infinite. How does the world made of matter or prakriti with the body, the mind, the intellect, the perceptions, thoughts and feelings relate to the infinite consciousness or the Purusha? What is the relationship between the Creator and this created world? So the essence of the shlokas that Lord Krishna wants us to glean from these verses is to cut down the samsara tree full of sattva, rajas and tamas with the axe of the knowledge of detachment. The literal meaning of these verses go as follows. The Supreme Divine Personality, Lord Krishna said. They speak of an eternal Ashwatha tree with its roots above and branches below. Its leaves are the Vedic hymns, and one who knows the secret of this tree is the knower of the Vedas. The branches of the tree extend upward and downward, nourished by the three gunas, with the objects of the senses as tender buds. The roots of the tree hang downwards, causing the flow of karma in the human form. Below, its roots branch out, causing actions in the world of humans. The real form of this tree is not perceived in this world, neither its beginning nor end, nor its continued existence. But this deep-rooted Ashwatha tree must be cut down with a strong axe of detachment. Then one must search out the base of the tree, which is the Supreme Lord, from whom streamed forth the activity of the universe a long time ago. Upon taking refuge in him, the Purusha, one will not return to this world again. Here, the life of samsara or the material world is compared to the Ashwatha tree. One of the earliest references of this tree is in the Taittiriya Aranyakam, known as the Aruna Prashnam. The 11th Anuvakam celebrates the Vaibhavam of Surya Narayanan and the power of Surya Upasana to gain the Purusharthams. The Gayatri Mantra that also glorifies the Antaryami Brahman of the Sun God is also in this Anuvakam. There is a Slokam in this that mentions the Ashwatha tree or Vriksham. It goes like this. Yasta Vijanat savituhu pitasat andho manimavindat tamanguliravayat agrivaha pratyamunchat tamajihva asanchat asachat urdhvamoola vātshākham vriksham yo veda sampati na sajatu janah shraddhadyat mrityurma marayaditihi hasitam ruditangeetam. In brief, this verse means that the one who has the vivekam or discrimination about the Brahman and sees all creatures as manifestations of the Brahman becomes the father of his own father. This enlightened soul who understands the Supreme Soul is like a blind man who received a beautiful gem. Like one without finger placing that gem on his non-existent finger. Like one without a neck wearing that gem on his phantom neck. And like one who has no tongue praising the glory of that gem. One who comprehends the Ashwatha tree of samsara with its roots growing upwards and the branches growing downwards. While he is still part of this universe, will not believe ever that Yamadharman will kill him. That means he doesn't have any rebirth. The concept of the Ashwatha tree as the tree of life is also discussed in the Kathopanishad in the first verse of chapter 6. Here, the Lord of Death, Yama, explains to Nachiketa to elaborate on the path of Adhyatma Yoga. Urdhva Moolo Vakshakha Yesho Shvathaha Sanatanaha Tadeva Shukram Tad Brahma Tadevamratamuchyate Tasmin Lokaha Shritaha Sarve Tadu Natyeti Kanchana Etat Vaitat. This is the ancient Ashwatha tree whose roots are above and branches below. That is the pure, the Brahman, and that is also the immortal. In that rests all the worlds, and none can transcend it. This is that. In the words of Adi Shankara, as in the world, the ascertainment of the root of a tree is made by ascertaining the nature of the tula or the panicle of the flower. This part of Kathopanishad is begun with the object of ascertaining the nature of the Brahman, the source of the samsara tree, by ascertaining the nature of the effect, the tree of samsara. That which is the root of this tree of samsara is indeed pure, bright, resplendent, and the intelligence of the Atman, that indeed is Brahman, being greater than all. That indeed is described as immortal in nature, being true. Any other than that is a mere matter of speech, modification, name, and falsehood, and therefore subject to death. On that is on the Brahman, absolutely true, do all the worlds, falls like the city of clouds in the sky, waters of the mirage and jugglery or maya, and perceived as non-existent by the knowledge of the absolute truth. depend during their birth, stay, and absorption. The Ashwatha tree or the fig tree or Bodhi tree or people tree depicts the pure or Brahman, and it's immortal. It is like the base on which the entire world rests, and no one can transcend it. The Ashwatha tree or the Bodhi tree or the fig tree, whose botanical name is Ficus religiosa, is an epiphytic tree. That means it is partly saprophytic. This means that sometimes the seed of the tree is deposited on the top branches of the same tree or other trees and develops roots that grow downwards toward the earth. Some people say its Ashwatha name originates because horses or Ashwaha used to be kept under the shade of the tree. The tree some have described as the roots are above and the branches are below. And even though some people have described this as an upside down tree, the spiritual meaning is much more complex. Scholars believe that the name Vriksha has been given to the word samsara because Vriksha is the tree and it gets the word meaning from the root word vriksha, that which can be cut down. Now the vriksha of samsara can be cut down by detachment. Even though we may enjoy the fragrance of a beautiful jasmine flower as we walk in a garden on a breezy evening, we know that the flower cannot exist without the roots of the plant. So, even though we have the superficial experience of the fragrance, what lies in the root of that fragrance? Shall we not all try to comprehend this? Therefore, in an attempt to understand the hidden cause of the effects and the end result that is perceived by our senses, this verse or shloka is helping us by using the beautiful comparison of the entire cosmic universe that is just a projection of the reality that exists underneath it, and in comparison of the people or Ashwatha tree. We may need to read these verses and contemplate on them multiple times to even begin to understand them. So let us look at it in a little more detail. The Ashwatha tree is called Avyaya or eternal. It is also extensive. Usually it spreads widely on a large area. It is very sturdy and has a very long duration of life. As anyone who has grown up in India knows that the peepal trees are long lasting. Many generations might have played under the same tree. They live for many years, between 900 to 1500 years. Some even reported to be as old as 3000 years. This could be considered immortal in the sense of the lives of the trees. The oldest plant in the world of known planting date is the Ficus religiosa tree, called Sri Mahabodhi, which was planted at the temple at Anuradhapura in Sri Lanka in 288 BCE, and thus it is estimated to be more than 2250 years old. Today, the Bo tree is revered as a symbol for prosperity, happiness, good fortune, and long life. Another example of the eternal nature of the Ashwatha tree is the story of the place known as Vidura Ashwatha in the Chikkaballapura district of Karnataka, there is a quaint temple associated with Vidura, the great wise man of Mahabharata, whose counsel was ignored by King Dhritarashtra and which ultimately led to the Kurukshetra war between the Kauravas and Pandavas. After the war, which caused innumerable deaths and grievous suffering, Vidura, on the advice of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, went on a Tirtha Yatra or a pilgrimage to calm his mind. He finally settled down in the ashram of Maitreya Rishi. Over there, at the suggestion of the Rishi, Vidura planted a sapling of the Ashwatha tree or Ficus religiosa and began to practice and worship the tree until his last day. This Ashwatha tree lasted thousands of years, and only recently, in early 2001, it fell. Amazingly, a portion of the trunk of the Ashwatha tree is still preserved, as is the site of the temple known as the Vidura Ashwatha temple. Coming back to the eternal nature of the Ashwatha tree, let us study the perspectives of this very complex concept. Urdhva Mula means the roots are upwards. Here it means that there is a reverence. The significance is that of all the parts of the tree, the root is the most sacred. Hence, most Urdhva are reverent. The roots are sucking out the sap or life from Vishnu Yat Paramam Padam, or the place where Vishnu resides, as described by Swami Chinmayananda in his commentary on the Kathopanishad. The word Ashwatha can also be broken to three parts, meaning A or A means no or not. Shwas means tomorrow, and Sthaha means existing. Together, these words mean that which does not exist tomorrow, representing the samsara we live in, the temporariness meaning the world with finite objects, where death and destruction is unavoidable. Here, the word Ashwatha probably also indicates the perishable world of Maya. So the simple meaning for this complex verse probably is best stated as the finite world or Ashwatha is rooted in that eternal truth of the Brahman and maintains itself from the nutrients derived from the absolute reality or truth. The tree of samsara should be cut and removed forever with the firm axe of discrimination. Having known the fact that Brahman or the eternal truth is the root that is sustaining the huge and complex tree of life or samsara. The leaves of the tree are considered as Veda or knowledge. Why is that so? It's because leaves are important to nourish the tree by absorbing sunlight. Only the leaves are able to produce the nourishment from the water absorbed by roots. If there were no leaves in a plant, it would not flourish and grow, even if only the roots were there. Therefore, it makes sense that the branches, if there are more and there are more leaves on the tree, the more the tree flourishes. The branches travel upwards and downwards. They spread in both directions. Now comparing the Ashwatha tree to the tree of life and to individuals who live lives, the flow of life in an individual could go toward the higher in an evolutionary search or lower towards animalistic tendencies. So the branches of the tree of life grow upwards and downwards. It is up to us to choose how we travel. As discussed in 14th chapter, the interplay of gunas determine samskaric tendencies. Here, not to be confused with samsara. Our samskaras or vasanas are determined by what is the combination of sattva, rajas and tamas that we are endowed with and develop. In the Ashwatha tree, there are going to be buds that have not yet developed into fruits or flowers. These buds are waiting to develop and represent our sense objects. When there is an object, depending on our tendency, we are either attracted to or repelled by the object. So, they may tend to develop a new branch toward the higher concepts or the lower tendencies. So, while the primary roots are closer to the absolute, the secondary and tertiary branches and roots take us farther and farther away from the primary and into the web of samskaras. Actions, reactions, whether good or bad, and further into likes and dislikes, and further actions and reactions, thus entangling oneself into samskaras. Here, the Lord says that its form is not perceived. That is, the tree of life represents the entire manifested life in different forms of perceptions, body, mind, and intellect. The Ashwatha tree is representative of the entire manifested life that is spread out to all its various forms. Very few can actually recognize the beginning or end and the existence of all the different forms. This tree arises from ignorance of reality. This avidya or ignorance ends once we gain vidya or the realization of the self. This cannot happen as long as we are indulged in our physical and mental demands or samskaras or vasanas. Most humans do not recognize or comprehend the subtle implications of ignorance. Therefore, this Ashwatha tree or the world of Maya or the manifestation of the material world can only be cut asunder by the knowledge of the self and by the strong acts of detachment. The knowledge that the experience of this material world can only be experienced and known by the consciousness that holds up this inert matter. This knowledge that if the consciousness was not supporting the insentient or inert matter is withdrawn, there is no manifestation. The ability to develop viveka or discrimination on what is real and what is not removes us from the cycle of birth and death. Instead of attaching the branches and roots to the material world, if one can cut the attachment to the temporary or inert matter and attach to the higher divine, if we set our goal high enough that we withdraw from these material attachments and attach to the higher or divine, we can be enlightened as to the reality of life. So, we are asked to take refuge or surrender to that primordial Purusha, source of all life. If we can withdraw from these transient manifestations and focus on the higher, the eternal, the unmanifest, then one can reach a level of existence that will remove us from the cycle of samsara and to a state of liberation. We chose these verses today because they are very relevant to what is happening around us on a daily basis. We are so deeply engaged in our material world, our relationships, our commitments, our work, our family. We don't realize how temporary this life is. One day we are here and the next day we may not. And when we realize how temporary everything around is, and the only thing that is immortal, that is eternal, is that Brahman, that universal consciousness that holds everything together, then we finally are able to take a step toward detaching ourselves from these material attachments and attach ourselves to the higher, to the Supreme Lord. That would be the hope for us to move in the right direction. We are so grateful for your attention and look forward to meeting you next time. Please forgive us for any mistakes that may have been committed and share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section. Thank you for listening. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
This was another unique episode. ஸ்லோகத்தில் ஆரம்பித்து ராமச்சரித்த மானஸ்லேருந்து நீங்கள் கொடுத்த ஸ்லோகம், பிரதர்ஸ் ராவணன், கும்பகர்ணன், விபீஷணன் அவளுடைய டிஃப்ரெண்ட் கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸை பற்றி நீங்கள் எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ணது, அஸ்வத விருட்சத்தோடைய இம்பார்ட்டன்ஸ், அது நம்மளுடைய லைஃபோடு அது எப்படி ஒன்றி போயிருக்கு, எல்லாமே ரொம்ப கிறிஸ்டல் கிளியராக இருந்தது. ஐ எம் ஷுர் வியூவர்ஸ் அண்ட் ஆடியன்ஸ், தோ திஸ் எபிசோட் வாஸ் அ பிட் லாங், இதோட எக்ஸ்ப்ளனேஷன் எல்லாத்தையும் நீங்கள் எல்லாருமே கேட்டிருப்பீங்க. இதுலேருந்து எவ்வளவு டீப் மீனிங் நம்ம தெரிஞ்சுக்க வேண்டியது இருக்குது அப்படின்றதையும் எல்லாரும் கண்டிப்பாக அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் பண்ணியிருப்பீள் அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிறேன். தேங்க்யூ வெரி வெரி மச் டு ஸ்ரீமதி டாக்டர் ஸ்ரீவித்யா சத்யமூர்த்தி ஃபார் another amazing episode of Bhagavad Gita on this Thiruvonam Day. இதே மாதிரி மாதம் பகவத்கீதா ஸ்லோகங்களும் அதுக்கான விளக்கங்கள், மேற்கோள்கள், நாங்கள் தெரிஞ்சுக்க வேண்டிய விஷயங்கள் எல்லாமே நிறையா இருக்குது. எவ்ரி மந்த் ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணின்னு வந்துருக்கேன். அடுத்த எபிசோட்காக நாங்கள் எல்லாருமே ரெடியாக வெயிட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். வியூவர்ஸ் அண்ட் ஆடியன்ஸ், கண்டிப்பாக அடுத்த மாதமும் திருவோணம் திருநாள் நிகழ்ச்சியில் வரப்போகிற எபிசோடை பார்க்குறதுக்கு காத்துருங்கோ. உங்கள் கதவிருக்ஷா சேனலில் கிருஷ்ண ஜெயந்தி உற்சவம் ஆரம்பிச்சிடுத்து. இன்னிலேருந்து தினம் ஒரு எபிசோட் ஆஃப் கிருஷ்ண ஜெயந்தி உற்சவம் பார்த்து கேட்டு எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் பண்ண போகிறேன். கண்ணனுடைய அவதாரத்தை விதவிதமாக கொண்டாடுறதுக்கு காத்துருக்கோம். எல்லாரும் கண்டிப்பாக அதையும் பார்த்து எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் பண்ணுங்க. உங்களுடைய ஃபீட்பேக் எங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டண்ட். கமெண்ட் பாக்ஸில் உங்களுடைய ஃபீட்பேக்கை கண்டிப்பாக மென்ஷன் பண்ணுங்க. மீண்டும் கதவிருக்ஷாவின் கிருஷ்ண ஜெயந்தி சிறப்பு நிகழ்ச்சியில் நாளைக்கு உங்கள் எல்லாரையும் நான் சந்திக்கிறேன். அது வரைக்கும் நமஸ்காரம்.